Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today's the day. We got a few of our most outstanding alumni members to join us and tell us their hardship, the experience in their learning here, how they started their job, any recommendation to us. Are they hiring? Good job tomorrow. But definitely we want them to share their learning experience here, and if they can go back and do that 2, 3, 4 years again, what would they recommend with you to do? So we have, I think there are at least one, maybe two person because they graduated long ago. They might or might not able to find this place. Hopefully they will come in a few minutes. But we will have also Teresa, which is supposed to join us online. So I have a set of questions I'm going to ask them, but we will open up the floor. If you have any question, as long as it's not too embarrassing, they can ask them. So first I'll let them to introduce themselves. Talk about your current position, your maybe your capstone when you were here, and maybe introduce a little bit about the company or organization you're working for. Okay, so
I'll kick things off. Sure, that works. So my name is Jacob User. I currently work over at LinkedIn up in Silicon Valley. I've been there for a little over 4 years now. I'm a principal web developer and managing director of our user experience department. So I basically manage, in addition to doing web development work, manage a team of 8 web developers across our mobile and news products. What else did you want me to go over?
You want to talk about what's LinkedIn and your capstone project?
Okay. Yeah, so we'll kind of rewind from that. So LinkedIn is a professional networking site. It's really a good answer to what you want to have show up when someone types your name into Google when you're looking for, when you're a candidate for a job. It's your professional reputation online. So in the same way Facebook is a way to share stuff with your friends, with your family, LinkedIn is really the online resume. It's the online representation of yourself. Everyone here is in some degree related to technology and the technology industry. It's very good to be cognizant of the product, be aware that employers are going to use it to look you up. Take some time and cultivate it and make sure that it represents how you want to be seen online. Rewinding back several steps, this is the second Silicon Valley company I've worked for. This is also the second company that has grown over 10x in size since I started. My capstone project was under John Idelson while Eric Howe was running the capstone class. And I put together a project management application in a language called PHP and built it for an open source content management system. It ended up teaching me how to maintain an open source project, how to put something out there, what it actually means when something's open source, which means I was on the hook for maintaining it 3-4 years after I graduated, seeing other people develop and use and build on top of it, and then ultimately transferring this ownership to another group. The capstone actually prepared me because I built something that was open source that was out there. When I went to my first employer, I was able to pull up an online example of what I built and say, I made this, I'm proud of this, this is my code, let's walk through it. And that ended up turning into my first job.
So I'm Florence McTee. Some of you guys know me already. I just graduated last spring, hence the familiarity with you guys. I work just on that big building right here on campus. It's called DMDC. I am a subcontractor for them, doing the software QA, so quality assurance. I just started this week. And over the summer, I was working on my capstone still with Dr. Mariana because we were going to present it last week into the military communications conference, but they canceled it because of the storm. So if you guys are interested in working on delay tolerant networking, I'm still working with him on that, and there's some, capstone to be had. You guys can go ahead and start thinking about it. If you're especially a networking student, it's very, very important that you still know how to communicate and collaborate with other people, and that's definitely the biggest thing that I learned from my capstone. Of course, I learned new protocols in networking, but the biggest thing is trying to relay that to your customers, that you understand what they're saying and that you in your own head can translate that into text. So.
That's good. So I have a list of questions, but any student have questions, welcome to raise your hand and ask that. Can you share with us what part of the CQB learning experience you enjoy most? If you want to share with us what you hate most, that's okay. And which class you learned most that helped you in your current job?
It's more of a cumulative thing. There's not because I'm on the software side and also on the networking side. I'm double concentration under CSIT. It's more of trying to make sure that you understand what you're saying and that your customers know what you're saying. So maybe it would be the technical writing I did with Karen Wisdom.
Technical writing is CST300. I know, Jacob, when you were here, we don't have that class.
No.
So if you don't know how to write it, it's not your fault.
I can't speak good either. Probably one of the biggest influences for me was Dr. Tao was teaching CST300 at the time, which was Intro to Programming in C++. Just a quick show of hands, how many people here have taken that class? Should be everyone, almost everyone. That includes not just networking people, it's the graphic design side as well. It's the instructional designers. The most important thing CSUMB did for me was give me a strong foundation. I do programming now, but I can find my way around Photoshop. At the time, Flash was part of our media tools class, and I could put together multimedia presentations. I was probably the only engineer at a company that knew how the heck PowerPoint worked. Like, you get such a solid foundation here that what you do after CSUMB is completely up to you. They just give you a really strong foundation to build upon.
It really is unique in that they build your communication skills and your other soft skills on top of your technical skills. So being able to present in front of the people, and you guys should be doing it in every class, which we do, it just will help you in your job interviews. It will help you when you're trying to present to your clients coming from your company's perspective. So it's just a really good base for that.
Sure. Any questions from the students? So why don't we, Jay, why don't
One question for you. You said something about being on the hook still for a couple of years?
Yeah.
On that one project?
So one of the things about open source is when you release something to the community. So the question was for me to go over what it meant when I said I was on the hook for a couple years after my capstone. When you release something into open source, you're putting it out on the internet for other people to use. Other people that then adopt it are going to have questions. They're going to have integration problems. They're going to come to you as a creator of this library saying, I can't get this to work. Can you help me? And this lasts for the duration of the project. This wasn't something I had originally anticipated when I decided to put my capstone out there for other people. It turns out that it was incredibly valuable. Over at LinkedIn, we're actually in the process of open sourcing a large portion of our library. And it's helpful because I can look back on my capstone experience and be like, this is what it entails. Make sure everyone understands what it means when you put something out there for other people to use. And it kept my learning experience going on well beyond my 400 class because I had to learn new things. I had to learn how to push out an upgrade to the software that didn't break other people. And that was a great experience. That's the kind of stuff that you can't capture in your day-to-day coursework.
You know, it caught my attention because it was just this week in Kevin Kano's class, 351, where he mentioned he wants us to build websites that we can walk away from. And then you say you didn't really walk away from it totally, but it became an advantage for you that you did. And you left, it was kind of open strap.
Yeah. So
I think he's misunderstanding what Kevin was saying by that. He's meaning that you don't want the customer to have to rely on you for every change that's going to be made in a website. They want you to be able to create the website, and then the changes that need to be made, the client can make them themselves. So I think that's what he was meaning by that in 351.
So what you're saying, by being on the hook, that you're still relied upon?
So in the case of me being relied upon, the big difference is when you're shipping software, which is slightly different than a website, you're actually the owner of the software. In Kevin Cahill's class, where he's teaching people to build websites, he's teaching you a client relationship, the idea that you can actually build a site for somebody and hopefully along the way teach them to be self-sufficient enough to maintain that website themselves. And that's a slight difference, and there's no really wrong way to approach it. In the case of open source software, a lot of what you do in putting it out there, you put it out there so that other people can use it. And you want them to have questions because the software gets better for it, but it's a very different model.
It's more like you're sharing your knowledge, so you're kind of teaching these people how to use your software. In the case of mine, for my capstone, I'm still kind of on the hook on that too, because I mean, my paper is out there. People are going to know, what did you do to that simulator? What did you do? What other stuff will you be doing? You know, you're still kind of, because you're sharing knowledge as opposed to just giving someone a web design, you're more likely than not to get like questions from people that have no clue what the subject matter, you know, and you become the subject matter expert on it.
Yeah, I still get questions about my master's paper actually that I did here. So I was in the initial cohort for the MIST program, which is our Master's in Instructional Science and Technology. And I still get questions about the paper that I wrote there from just random professionals in distance learning that they say, because mine was on detecting plagiarism for online coursework. And they're asking questions about how does this work, what were the theories, what software is looking at using this. And they come to you because you put your stuff out there as, I know something about this. And thanks to the internet being what it is, people will find you and they'll ask you questions. And you get better
find
for
you on
it.
LinkedIn.
Hopefully.
You might want to use a microphone or a projection for it. So before we go to more kind of professional side, I want to do what part of your experience other than classroom on campus that you give you the most memory or give you the most impression?
I'll even use the microphone for Eric. So one of the things that was the most impactful non-classroom experience for me was for about 2 years I was the treasurer for the ICC, and I think we still have the Interclub Council here.
Yeah.
I was the president of the Anime Club at the time, on top of doing treasurer work, and tried to figure out how to do fundraising because ICC had a finite cap on what they could provide clubs at the time. Learning how to deal with budgetary stuff and support a bunch of student organizations was just something that wasn't really part of a computer science curriculum. It was just a really radical experience, and here I am working in Excel spreadsheets and numbers and doing finance stuff, which I distinctly avoided the business side of CST for that reason, but did it anyway, and it ended up being a good experience.
I don't know, just trying to, well, mine is kind of connected to my capstone, but obviously not everybody has to go to conferences, but conferences are fun. And if you write a paper for a conference, you definitely get to experience the steps on how to become a published writer out there. So since they canceled that last week's conference, you know, my paper gets out there even though I didn't present it at the conference. But you definitely get to network with people. We have several kind of get-togethers in Cannery Row for technical conferences. It's like little talks that I go to, and it's been fun. You meet new people, you network before you graduate, you network for jobs, and definitely it helps because when you're just online or just looking on the newspaper for your jobs, it's hard. I'm definitely in LinkedIn, and most of my colleagues next door are in LinkedIn, so it's very helpful to just go to conferences. You don't even have to write a paper, just go. It's fun.
So the reason why I want to bring it up is that in a university environment, often a lot of students, well, some of you, will look at your curriculum, will look at your learning as nothing but 120 units. That means you're not going to get a lot of advantage outside the classroom. Their student club, their extracurricular activity, their research, conference, trade show. You have to experience one or two of those to really get the most experience out of your college experience.
And take some time, look to your left, look to your right. The people that are sitting next to you 5 years from now may be at the company you want to work for. So keep that in mind. Like, I keep in touch with a lot of people from my 300 and my 400 class. I know what projects they did. I keep track of where they are. Because in Silicon Valley, in tech, you move around quite a bit. And after 5 years of shuffling jobs, everyone will end up at different companies. And keeping aware of those opportunities is really good. So there's great networking opportunities here in this class with your peers as is.
Actually, 80% of my classmates from networking class is next door.
Yep.
I see them every day.
Yeah, that's
So-
the two have a pretty. Well, we're going to ask them. Their experiences are very different.
Yeah.
Jacob decided to go for the startup, the scary dark side of Silicon Valley. But we have other students go to really continue your internship, right?
Yeah, I
And
wasn't.
many you go to the defense manpower data center, you back to your class. Half of the sixth floor is our own graduate. So the experiences are very different. I'm going to ask you, how did you get the job? What's your interview process? And anything you can recommend. Because until you actually go through it, it's hard to imagine, but as authentic as possible. Especially you would just go through that not too long ago. Kind of share with us, what is the process? Okay. Let's do that. So Jacob, how did you end up with LinkedIn?
Cool. So my story post-graduation, I was actually a user on the website at the time during my my 400 level class, and I got to know the administrator of the website, who shortly after my graduation said, "How much are you making doing your part-time job at the Naval Postgraduate School?" And I was like, "Well, not a whole lot." And he was like, "Well, you should come up and work for us." And he gave me a salary number, and I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of money." Okay then, Silicon Valley it is. And that was the start of it. The first 4 months I was commuting from Monterey over by the Embassy Suites where I was living.
Jacob,
up to
can we elaborate a little bit about how do you connect that communication between you and LinkedIn? Give us more detail.
Yep, so I'll get there. So that was actually the first job, was I just reached out to someone and it turned into a development. I ended up getting my first job in Silicon Valley because of my capstone work. I was able to show my employer code I had written, and that turned into a job. While I was at that company, I ended up making sure that the work I was doing was public and visible. And that's when I got to LinkedIn. And LinkedIn's interviewing process at the time was a lot of whiteboarding. When you interview for a tech company in Silicon Valley, you have to be prepared to write some code on a whiteboard. They're going to ask you a problem. It's going to be usually limited in scope. It's going to be something usually pragmatic or hands-on. And they're going to ask you to write some code to illustrate it. It might be something like building out a simple program that displays the first n Fibonacci numbers or something like that. Just to make sure you have an understanding of basic computer science concepts. All the way up to someone might ask you, when you open a browser and you hit a web page, deconstruct it, tell me what's actually happening to understand your learning process. We actually use a lot of that in our interviewing process at LinkedIn even today. Our programming exercises for web development deal with, can you build a tabbed navigation? Do you understand how to lay stuff out using regular code without using an IDE? Do you understand the mechanics of how a web page behaves? Can you debug your JavaScript or your other interactive elements on the page? If something's broken, do you understand why? And we put that together, and it takes it's a day's process, usually 5 or 6 interviews plus a lunch that's provided. And that gives us an overall sense of a candidate's technical skill. So over the 4 years I've been at LinkedIn, we've kind of refined it from just kind of a, hey, let's do some code on a whiteboard, to a much more formal process, which if you're looking at the larger Silicon Valley tech companies, Google, LinkedIn, Yahoo, Facebook, you can actually expect a very similar interviewing process. A lot of us now interview very much the same.
And I can attest to that lately, even just a couple of months back, they all kind of interview the same. You have to make sure that you know how to, and you don't have to be even syntactically correct all the time, but you need to be able to know how to build a software from the ground up if you're a software person. If you're a networking person, you need to be able to go through your OSI model and explain to your employer, hey, you know, I put this on the URL and this is what happens. It goes to this and this and this and this is what it does. You need to make sure that you can express in layman's terms how your tech speak goes, because usually your first interviewer is a human resource person that has no clue how the technical, you know, side works. So you need to make sure that you can translate that layman's terms. And trying to get a job, pretty much I had interviews after interviews, but how I got this particular job is that Jonathan Shu, one of our professors, one of our teachers here, he works at the MDC, and again, networking works, as in people networking works for trying to get a job. If you know people in the industry, make sure that you introduce yourselves. That's why going to conferences and going on panels like this, even if you're not the panel, you know, go and see, go to watch the teledramatic arts capstones. You'll meet people that are also in technical fields there, you know. And then that's how I ended up getting a job. I gave him my resume. He asked me for my resume. I gave it to him, and he's like, how is your technical writing? So of course I have to give him samples of the stuff that I wrote during coursework, because he knows that I just recently wrote those. And he gives it to the QA team, and the QA team reads it, and a couple weeks after that, they're like, hey, now the position that we wanted to interview you for is open. So come on in and let's talk. And actually, my interview, they already, I think, decided to hire me because my interview talked about Battleship. So that's how I ended up getting that job.
So these two are good examples. Probably 80% of the good job before they advertise on Monster.com or Career Builder is already someone already passed that opportunity to their friends or their classmates. Say, hey, I know you are very good. Our company is hiring this. Are you interested? So often you see all these jobs on the job board. Often they are already kind of designated for someone. So the lesson we have learned over the year, and many stories coming from Silicon Valley, is that you need to go out and introduce yourself, work with a faculty, get your name out there, participate outside of classroom activity. That networking is crucial. It's not part that you can decide, well, I have time to do it or not. It is part of your career building. Even you find a job, especially in startup, you continue to connect in your industry or even outside of your industry. Question?
I have a question for both. Could you explain to me why a manhole cover is round?
My personal opinion why a manhole cover is round is because we got bored of straight edges. I actually think that the primary reason is just for bodies to go in and out easily, and a lot of the tubes that you use to clean out sewers happen to also be circular in shape. That's my guess. Plus it's a cool shape.
Well, not only that, it saves us some metal to have to create a circle instead of having the corners for the square. So it's actually a smaller.
The only reason why I asked this is because this is one of the main questions from Microsoft, and there's always a way of gauging it. I wanted to see what would be your way of actually answering that.
Yeah, so in an interview question, just for those that will be interviewing with companies like Microsoft, when you get questions like that, they're really interested to see in how you think and how you rationalize. If you're ever interested in technical product management, they'll also ask you similar questions around why is a metric this way, or I've got a registration form that is currently performing only 20% of users ever finish. What's wrong with it? And all they do is they just give you a screenshot, and you're just like, maybe we have too many. You actually start pulling it apart. It's much more about how you think questions.
Yeah, they want to know how you respond to it, even if you get those comical questions, even how you respond to a comical question. they have to gauge your personality against their people's personalities also. So it's not just your technical stuff.
Yeah, so what we have learned over the past is that there are two types of kind of hiring. One is big company, they are hiring talents. They might not have a project for you right away, but they are hiring talent to build you up for the future. So those are going to be asked those, why the manhole is round type of question. And the other extreme is that the guy doing the programming left 2 weeks ago. They need to hire you so you can start this afternoon. And they are going to ask you that, do you know Drupal 7.1, this module? So there are two extremes. Most companies kind of fall in the middle. But the larger company, they want to see what's your potential. The smaller company, they especially start out, they ask you, can you be productive tomorrow? So you need to hit both sides. You need to be kind of critical thinker, able to present yourself as a kind of good material. But also you need to know, okay, I know this particular software or tool. I will question you there first.
Two things. Manhole cover is round. This is one of the ones that's on all the lists because it's a physical impossibility for a round thing to fall through a smaller circle. You can't spin it like if it were a square and actually fit it through itself. So you can't lose the manhole cover itself into its hole. And then the collection of problems that are used for these interviews are called Fermi problems a lot of times. You can find a lot of them online, and they're just examples of, again, how you think. How many ping pong balls can fit into a yellow school bus?
That's right.
And they want you to reason through, like, well, assuming a ping pong ball is...
Even a one-unit class offered by Berkeley Extension, the class is to analyze all these strange questions that big company asks. So become almost a site. I guess you can find books or websites to deal with that.
But most important is you need to be able to explain what you put in your resume. They will ask you a lot of questions about what you put on there. You need to make sure you know the ins and outs of your projects. Especially when you say that you're having, a certain particular product at the end of class. You need to be able to explain, well, how did you get that?
That's why we ask you to do a lot of collaboration and presentation projects for good reason, not just we like to torture.
Nick, now you were talking about the two different ends with the big companies and startup companies. Would you need two different resume types for that? Would you set up different resumes for the different companies that you're going to go to? I would think you would, but
I would recommend you have 2 or 3 different resume for different type of industry, and also the cover letter. If you're serious about getting that job, you need to write a cover letter
specifically for that company.
What do you think?
At least at LinkedIn, I know this sounds really sacrilegious here. We don't use cover letters. The big thing that we do is we vet the resume. So one thing that's worth saying is if you decide to put Java on your resume, be expected to be asked about Java questions. If you put C++ on there, expect C++. There's enough of a diverse, in larger companies, there's going to be an engineer that knows that language, and the recruiter will often fit people with those languages based on what your resume said. So if you're going to put things on the resume, be ready to back it up. I also encourage people to have a base resume and tweak it for the company and position you're looking for. A web developer, you're going to want to highlight different things where you've worked on client UI technologies, different than, say, an algorithm or a database guy who you're going to want to highlight some of the back-end work that you've done. So you want to make sure your projects that you're highlighting and the things on your resume really reflect what you're actually applying for, because that gets you past that recruiter screen. They're going to look down and be like, yep, no, but that's okay, yep, okay, he's in the yes pile. And they'll just go through it, and in 30 seconds they've made the decision. So make sure what's in your resume reflects what position you're going for.
Other question before I ask my question? Okay. So 2 more questions I want to ask. The first is that what if you have to go back to if you have to go through your college learning experience again? What things would you do, or what things would you not do? The other question I was saying, what kind of people are you hiring, or your company hiring? So the do and don'ts in college.
Definitely stick to your time management plan. He teaches time management,
Little bit.
like in this class. Make sure you create a plan and you stick to that plan, because if you don't, you're gonna get so behind. Don't party the day before a class. No, I'm kidding. You can do that as long as you still stick to your schedule the next day.
You have to have that in your time management plan.
Put it in your time management plan. It's time to sleep in because I was hungover.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, definitely have that plan. Have like the goals that you have kind of set aside. Next semester, this is what I need to finish type deal. And then this month, this is what I have to finish. And then on a weekly basis, make sure you update your weekly plan so that it reflects what you need to do for your classes, and also make time for conferences and talks and different outside activities. So you need to do that.
So if there was one thing I could do all over again, going back to CSUMB, well, there'd be a lot, but the first thing is I didn't understand the relevance and importance of the tech tools class. I've been working with computers since I was a kid, and it was like, whatever, tech tools. It was being taught by Rosalie Strong at the time. And I was like, I know all this. It turns out that in the industry, 85% of what you do is look stuff up on the internet to see how it actually is done. The other 15% is when you learn nobody has actually done it before, sharing it back with the internet. So, especially in web development and programming, that becomes a really major, significant thing. In fact, when we talk to candidates, when you mentioned what do we look for, we look for three things. We look for people that are smart, that can get stuff done, and have solid research skills. So when I go back and talk about these programming exercises, we can answer whether or not you're smart by just talking to you about the work you've done. In fact, that also tells us whether or not you can get stuff done. The in-person coding exercises prove that you can write code, that it wasn't just someone else writing code that you put your name on. And then we have questions like our debugging questions or breaking apart how a web page loads, which allows us to say, do you understand how to do research? For a lot of those programs, we actually give you a computer and we're like, solve this, help walk through it with us. Use Google, look things up, go to W3 Schools or all these other websites out there to see why this isn't laying out right. And actually work through and solve the problem, because that's what your day job actually is. It's a lot of looking things up online, applying them, and then using critical problem solving to pull it back apart and figure out what exactly is the fix you need.
Do you, I know you're a web developer. Do you guys do you separate web designers and web developers, or do you have some that kind of dip in both areas? How does it work at LinkedIn anyway?
So I can tell you how it works at LinkedIn, and I can also tell you a little bit about how it works at a couple other companies in the Valley. Web developers are web designers. In the event of LinkedIn, they both roll up to the user experience and design, which includes people writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, our designers, visual and interaction, and also our voice and tone and user research people. So that's all one umbrella under UED. I write code, I write UI code, and I am part of the design organization at the company. At a lot of other companies, for example, Twitter, the front-end engineers are assigned to verticals and work more in a full stack capacity. So they'll not only be doing necessarily UI work, but they might also be working a couple levels down in Scala or Java, which are the main languages they use. So it varies from company to company. And if you're really clear with the recruiter about what you want to focus on, you can get a really good sense whether or not a company is a good fit.
Here with our company though, a lot of the stakeholders, you will at least have one representative from each stakeholder present at every single meeting, so that from the customer side all the way to the testers, to the developers, to production, you have somebody there present that knows what's going on with a certain project. So we have several, we're like projects based in our company, so whenever the customer needs something, that's when you collaborate, even when before they even know what they want. So when they create the business rules, the tester, the developers are already in the room regardless of do they even know what they want yet. So.
And many other alumni members have told us that often they are hired as a web designer, but the next day they're going to start working, they're asked to do, can you also do this script or code? And people expect, especially smaller company, the company expect you to do quite a bit. So even if you cannot do the coding, at least you should know how to talk to a computer science side and solve the problem together, and vice versa. If you can do the software, can do the technology, can you work with designers, can you work with users to actually get what they need? So that cross-discipline communication understanding is crucial, and that's your advantage. So when you are a CD student taking more technical class, or a CSIT student taking more design class, try to absorb that language, that connections as much as possible. Any other questions before I go on? So, in the industry, how do you keep yourself updated? What is the company, how does the company support you, or how do you continue to update your knowledge and skills?
So in Silicon Valley, there's the standard conferences and things like that, which give you an advantage. They allow you to go network with people, go learn about technology. But the company can only do so much because most companies in Silicon Valley are focused on shipping products. So you find that you end up spending some of your free time, because this is not only hopefully a career you're looking for, but something you're passionate about, to learn, to research, taking time out of your day to go and learn about technology, see what's starting. CSUMB gives you a really good foundation, like I said. It's going to teach you C++ or Java. It's not going to teach you Ruby or Node.js or whatever the latest technology is. Probably by the time a lot of you graduate, there will be a new language that will be cutting edge and totally going to revolutionize something or other. And there's a good chance that the only way you're going to get ahead of it is to take the initiative yourself. The company will get you into seminars, they'll get you into conferences to meet people. You can learn about the technology, but then at some point you're going to have to sit down and actually try it.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be self-motivated to learn newer things for yourself, not just whatever your company offers or uses. In order to expand your knowledge, you just need to make sure you're in those newsletters for IEEE conferences, at least that, have the newsletters come to you. And you have to read. So.
For those of you that are going into either the web development side or the CD side, your most important thing you have is your personal website. Take some time, think about it. It's not necessarily a capstone. Please don't make your personal website a capstone. Your portfolio is represented by how you present yourself online. It is, if you're a designer, it's a chance for you to put up your latest stuff from Dribbble or your design site of choice or your Pinterest feed or whatever represents how you approach design. If you're a developer, code your website at least once. Use it as a chance to play with new technology, to try new things. Your website is a representation of you, and if you're going into the internet industry, having that as a living thing that you can show people in interviews ends up paying back 100-fold.
Yeah, there was a couple of interviews to where because my home server capstone is still up, so they are like, well, can you show us online where your stuff is? And definitely, you guys are starting to make your portfolios this semester. Make sure you take that time to create it this semester, because when you get to 400, you will not have the time. So do it on 300. So.
It is even more important for CD students. If you are graduating with a CD degree and you don't have an online portfolio, you are not serious about getting a career start. Computer science, on the other hand, people look at more of the internal skill. They are not looking more at your portfolio, because the portfolio is the internet. You can steal or copy everything. But the design side, you have to have your own kind of prior design, so people know what your style, what you're accomplishing. So now is the time to not only think about your portfolio as a way to graduate from this university, but also build that as your showcase for your future career. Other questions?
Is there like one conference you would specifically recommend to either CSIT or CT students?
So I'm not going to go into the IEEE conferences because I think that's more on the networking side. If you're looking to simply network with a large volume of people and do it the Silicon Valley drinking way, South by Southwest in Austin, Texas is pretty much nerd nexus zero. It is the number of people you're going to meet that are doing interesting things in technology on the internet is definitely that conference. If you are looking for a conference, especially if a company can back you, one of the best conferences to go to that's here locally is called an Event Apart, and they do it in San Francisco.
What is that?
It's called an Event Apart, AN space EVENT space APART. And it's about, I think it's like $1,000 for the 3-day conference, which is why I said you want to have a company back you for it. It is a single track conference, so it's different than your typical go to a bunch of different workshops, have a keynote, go to a bunch of other workshops. There's exactly
Can you
one.
spell that for me again?
Yeah, it's an event apart.
Oh,
Sold out.
Yeah, it happens a lot. It is, the people speaking at the conferences are internet luminaries. They are the people that define our industry. So if you want to hear Doug Bowman talk about the design of Twitter, or Luke Bobrowski talk about how accessibility impacted Yahoo, that's the conference and that's the speakers. And they tend to put up their slides and stuff online after the conference. So even if you can't go to the conference, you can always follow up and get the slides. They actually video and post the presentations. So it's almost like being at the conference. And even if you can't go, it's good to watch, especially for if you're in that industry. I'll let you talk about the IEEE instead.
They definitely also have the RSA conference here. If you're a networking person, you need to make sure that you're in touch with the RSA conference because that's for the security side. And if you're interested in any Department of Defense work, Military Communications Conference, and they go in different places. That would be the 3 that I would recommend, at least.
So, what's your plan moving up to take over the world? So, how do you see your future? And how do you prepare for it?
So one of the things that I know that I'm going to eventually do is start my own company. Having been in Silicon Valley, having worked through 2 startups going from, one of them went from 10 to 100, one of them went from 100 to 1,000. The idea of building something that's so impactful that changes the world is kind of exciting. And I've been cultivating ideas since my first startup of things that I think may stand the test of time. And I imagine either after LinkedIn or one company after LinkedIn, I'll have the skills I feel like I need in order to start my own company. And a lot of that has been learning the technical stuff, learning where my deficiencies are. I'm not a business guy. I actually took the MIST cohort instead of the MISMID, so I don't have the business background. So I know out of the gates that I need to find a strong business partner with a technology background. It just happens that CSUMB has a group of those graduates every year, so. But understanding where your weaknesses are and working on how you're going to fill those is kind of the key to the next step. And hopefully I can come back in a couple of years and talk to you about my startup, and that would be pretty awesome too.
Jacob, January 25th and 20 to 27th, 3 days on campus, we're going to have the first, at least in this region, startup weekend. So from Friday night till Sunday night, you have 54 hours. The idea is that you kind of put a 6 month of startup experience, which include coming up with an idea, recruit your team, bounce the idea with them, find a consultant, build a business plan, build a prototype, build a financial plan, put together a presentation, present it to the investor. The whole thing usually takes anywhere from 3 months to 3 years. We try to mimic that experience in 3 days. So we have about 40 seats for students. Okay? There's 120 seats, 60 for industry professionals, 60 for students. We reserve about 40 for our student. I believe that 40 will be maybe 25 to 30 computer science student, 10 to 15 for the CD student. Because most of the startup today is probably using the web. So if you're interested, you should put that on your calendar. That's the first weekend during the spring semester. And if you have time, welcome to come and be a mentor, or if you have an idea, that's a way to pitch and get into core team. So what the student will get is not only get that experience of a startup, including a lot of coffee, a lot of argument, testing, changing the idea at the last moment, all that stuff. But also you know about 20, 30 people that are all thinking about starting a company. Not only on this campus, but also Silicon Valley, Naval Postgraduate School, MEAS, and NPC. So keep that on your calendar. The interesting thing is that most of those startups is happening all over the world right now. The one they have plenty of tech people, but most of them most of the companies lack the design people. Can actually connect the user to the technology, which you guys should be pretty good at. So put on your calendar. That would be a great networking and kind of outside of classroom experience for you.
Yes.
Sort of a commercial.
So for me, I would see myself, I consider myself a patriot, so I will definitely want to still work with the Department of Defense. I'm a veteran, so I know how to kind of support myself. So it's kind of self-serving that I go and work for the people that support the veterans because I'm a veteran. In any case, I will still continue my education since I only have a bachelor's degree. I'll be hoping to get some kind of graduate on my back before I think of starting my own company.
So getting a master, especially getting a master after a couple of years of experience, I think that's pretty advantageous for you to think about. Not only you get another level of skills, you are, about 40 to 50% of our population have some kind of college experience. The master gives you to be on top of 80 to 90%. And also, because the self-selection, most people go to the master program, they want to achieve pretty high. So you kind of build your friendship or your connection within that very high achieving group of people. So something you should consider.
As a web developer / designer, that field, what kind of a master's program would you feel? I know you had stated that you wish you had a little bit of business. That's something that I've considered myself, but what type of a master's plan or area would you focus on?
I think that's actually one of the big reasons why Eric mentioned taking a couple years off after graduation before you come back into education again. It's going to be very dependent on where you find that you want to emphasize. Some people want the business side. I felt that one of the things that I wanted to grow as was a mentor, because I feel like a startup for me, I can find a business person. I think I would have a harder time finding a person that could evangelize and teach a technology. And so I decided to focus on instructional science and technology with pedagogy and stuff like that as the business side. So do take a couple years off and take some time to, after you graduate, to work in the industry and see what master's program, if a master's program is right, because it will be different for everyone.
Definitely one of the reasons why I decided to go to work for now instead of going straight to a master's program, because that's why I have a double concentration here. I couldn't decide between the software side and the hardware side, and the networking side, and the security side, and the data management side. I can't decide. So right now I'm in a company that has data management all up everywhere. But there's the web developer side, there's definitely the software engineering side of it, there's definitely the networking side of it, and it's all in a big picture. And to me, I have not narrowed myself down into a specific field that I want to concentrate on for a master's or even a doctorate, because to me, it's all pretty.
So there's not that I can predict the future. I did predict Apple's stock will come down. The new thing on the block people are talking about in relate to our field is the data engineering. What does that mean? Can you write software that access the data, that's so-called big data? Big data means the data is so big, it probably cannot reside on one server or one computer. It's kind of on the cloud, in the cloud, trillion items of data. Can you write software to get some kind of knowledge, get some kind of prediction from that huge data? That we were told will be the next big thing, right?
We're actually aggressively hiring in data science, which is the formal name for it. If anyone is actually interested in the idea of, I have a pile of data, come up with a hypothesis, write the code that tests it, and exercise whatever your algorithm or code is. There's actually a couple things that I think you can do outside of your curriculum here at CSUMB, especially in the realm of your capstone, to start thinking about. There's a lot of data sources that are public right now. So for example, traffic data is public. The road condition information is public. There's a couple applications out there that you should be aware of. Voldemort, Hadoop, Apache Pig. These are the tools for managing big data. I would love to see some people actually, if you love data science, if you love the idea of working with big data, make that your capstone. Go learn those things. CST will teach you how to think, but some of these new cutting edge technologies, they're still being built. So here's a good chance to get in front and come out of college hireable, more hireable than a lot of people that they've heard of big data, but they don't know what to do with it.
So faculty in ITCD that are doing research actually on you. We are collecting a lot of background data. Everything you do on iLearn is recorded if you don't know it. So we are trying to use that as a big data. On campus, there are 6,000 students using iLearn every day. Does any of the behavior can conclude into something that the campus can intervene? Say, for example, something obvious. Say, Jim didn't log in for 3 weeks for any class. Someone need to call him. But that's easy. But there's other things, right? There are other things that there are behavior embedded in that huge data. Someone, hopefully our computer science or CT student, will look at the data and come up with an algorithm saying, if you design iLearn this way, the success rate of the student is higher. That will be a great contribution.
With the iLearn data, if people are looking for projects, I know in 300 we started thinking about our capstone projects. Someone at some point is going to have to figure out how long, like what is the correlation between the time you spend in iLearn and how you do academically. All that data is there. We have access to transcript data. I'm sure that the professors can anonymize it. You just have to ask and set the groundwork for it. Hypothesize about that. The university collects tons of data. On top of that, the university, through UROC and other things, might have access to data from other universities. How does CSUMB perform in certain aspects relative to other universities? These are exciting research questions, and they can have a birth here in the computer science department because people here are hungry and want to learn and explore that stuff.
Definitely take some statistics class, at least the intro to statistics, because you're gonna find that in your job you will have to somehow correlate some kind of field with some other kind of field, and you're gonna have to analyze it and give reason why that happens. So take some statistics class.
So the three things, if you are thinking about data scientists or data computing or big data computing, you need to have some database, you need to have some software engineering, programming skill, you need to probably have some statistics, and also you need to know kind of the general liberal art. You need to make some sense out of the data. So you couldn't be just a tech person. You need to know how human being behaves. So can you tell us kind of other big trends in your industry? So the people graduating 2-3 years can kind of already thinking about a big trend in addition to the big data?
I probably don't need to say this, but how many people here have a smartphone? iPhone, Android, etc. Yeah, that's pretty much the future of where the internet's going. I'll come out and say that right now. I can't actually give the numbers, but an increasing percentage of traffic on LinkedIn is trending towards mobile. Facebook came out and said that one of the big problems that they had was figuring out how to monetize on mobile because such a large percentage of their traffic is going to mobile. Android, with the release of Jelly Bean, is releasing new OS updates every 6 months. They're pushing out a new phone named Nexus every 4. iPhone is on an 18-month refresh cycle. iPad just released the iPad mini, which is at a size, I don't know exactly what you'd use it for, but you might. Technology is moving so fast and we're moving so quickly towards mobile that the stuff you learn about C++, about Java here, you could pick up Objective-C and you could start building an iOS app. In fact, I think there should be probably a couple of capstones that are either an iOS or an Android app or a mobile web application. I think we've reached that point. And up in Silicon Valley, people are hungry for mobile developers. They want people that understand how to build a mobile website, what goes into it, how does it work. So that's probably the other massive trend we're seeing to go along with data science.
Well, and just knowing the behaviors again of our society as a whole, because I mentioned I'm DoD person supporter, but everything, every technology, every single user interface, every single server, every single connection that there is in the DoD is to support the military families and the DoD personnel. And so you gotta have to kind of look at some politics. Because there are trends happening, like right now, it's the health industry. Well, the Veterans Affairs had already took all the health data and already are kind of like testing how the whole health industry is going to go. So the military personnel are already in what the future is for the outside community, to where all the health data is going to go somewhere in some kind of repository, and somebody's going to have to manage it. So if you, and I had several interviews in the healthcare industry around here. We have Chomp and Natividad and all that. If you don't know anything about their databases when it comes to healthcare, if you want to get into the healthcare industry, make sure you know about the databases and the technologies that they use, because if you don't mention those keyword names, they will not, the hiring manager will not know that regardless if it's a database, you can learn how to do the database. They don't know that. They have to learn the keywords. So go out there, research which database you want to work with, or how they're handling their electronic records now, and